now to the business of the day. Before I hand over our meeting to our chair, it's my great pleasure to confirm the appointment of Lord Mayor Nicholas Reece as an honorary member of our club for the term of service as Lord Mayor. This is a tradition in our club for some time and in recognition of our strong desire to work together for the City of Melbourne for the benefit of our community. But I'd now ask our chair of the day, Rob McGirt, who's famous for his peace bells, to come to the podium and further introduce our guest speaker. Rob, over to you.
Thanks very much, President Catherine. Well, it's with great pleasure that I do introduce our Lord Mayor, Nicholas Reece. As has been mentioned, it's a tradition where we have the Lord Mayor as a member of our club, and each year they attend and give us an update on the state of Melbourne. So we're all looking forward to that. And Nick's assured me already today that he'll attend this every year from here on in. So that tradition, which is great. Thanks, Steve. I'm reliably informed also he's the 105th Lord Mayor of our city. He was sworn in as Lord Melbourne in July 2024, and he took over from Sally Capp, as we know, and then re-elected in November 24. He was first elected as a councillor in the City of Melbourne in 2016 and was elected as Deputy Lord Mayor in 2020. And he's had a long experience of service within the council and also experience in business, law and journalism. He was telling me he's had quite a bit of experience as well in TV as well, nighttime TV. So he brings a deep understanding of Melbourne and Melbourne's life to the role of the Lord Mayor. A couple of other things though about Nick is he's one of the original Mo Bros. He was former chairman of Global Men's Health charity Movember. That was founded in Melbourne, and almost 10 million people participated in this, and it's raised almost 1.5 billion for prostate cancer and men's mental health. So for over 10 years, Nicholas was a director of the street newspaper, The Big Issue. It's Australia's most successful social enterprise for homeless and vulnerable people. But he's got very good social credentials as well, which he brings to the role. He's been a senior executive at the University of Melbourne, and he's had considerable experience in government, having worked as the senior advisor for Prime Minister Julia Gillard and the Victorian Premier Steve Bracks and John Brumby. Nick currently lives in Carlton with his wife and 3 school-aged daughters. He's a paid-up and passionate member of the Carlton Football Club, which won't hold it against him, but he should have been Melbourne, Nick, Melbourne. Sorry. And he's dreaming of a flag for the Blues in 2025, so you just keep dreaming about that one. Okay, so now I think we're going to do the official induction as a member. So I'll ask you to come up, Nicholas, to accept your pins.
Nick, the good news is I don't have to do the long induction I just did with Sarah, but I'm very pleased to offer you honorary membership of the Rotary Melbourne for your term of office. We're excited that you're going to come back and see us every year at least, hopefully a bit more. Please accept this honorary member pin on behalf of Rotary Melbourne and wear it with pride.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you. I'm assuming there were no objections when I went through the membership committee. It's a real honour to accept the membership this time.
Thank you very much. And now, the important business of the day, everyone's waiting with bated breath to hear from you. So I'll pass the microphone to you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Nick.
Well, thank you very much, President Catherine, and thank you for that very kind and generous introduction, Robert. Can I begin by saying my name is Nick Reece. Whenever I get called Nicholas, I feel like I'm in trouble with Mum, and I'm sure that's not what you want to convey to me here at this magnificent Rotary Club. I also realise that this address is an annual event and it's occurring a little later than usual. There was a small thing of an election in the City of Melbourne which got in the way. So I do thank you for all your patience on that front. And standing here today giving you the address on the state of our city, I must tell you I feel truly humbled to be standing in front of such a great collection of the good and the great of Melbourne. We are in a magnificent city, and we are really, at the end of the day, a collection of people. And it's the people that is the secret of this city. And so it's so good to see so many friends and colleagues from different parts of my life here today. Thank you so much. Also look out this window, and you want to know the state of the city. Or if you could lift the curtains a little bit, you would see how incredible it is looking. You look across the MCG, the Botanical Gardens, the Fitzroy Gardens. It really is a beautiful, beautiful city. I should also say, I think you come here regularly, but if you haven't been here before, and you haven't had the opportunity, make sure you go to the loos. They do afford one of the best views you'll ever find from any lavatories anywhere in the world. In fact, I think it was Venus and Serena Williams who famously took a selfie in the toilets here. It was perfectly PG rated. Don't worry about that. So make sure you use the facilities while you're here today. It is a beautiful city, and of course, the traditional owners of this wonderful land are the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. And so let me say in their language to you, Wominjenka, Marambik Burundap, Wurundjeri Wilam U, Liwik U Kulin, Yirambo Ba Yiramboy. Now that is an acknowledgement of the Kulin people, and I, as a Lord Mayor, are very proud of the fact that we have here in Australia the oldest continuous culture in the world. And of course, language is a very important part of culture. And so I make that special effort to do that acknowledgement in language. I'm conscious that this is the first time I've had the opportunity to speak to Rotary Melbourne. And it's hoping it's an invitation that I'll be able to take up each year as Lord Mayor, but we'll see how today goes. And so given it is my first time addressing you, I thought I would take the opportunity to just talk a little bit about myself and my story. So yes, I was sworn in as the 105th Lord Mayor of Melbourne in 2024 and then elected in November. I was joking with President Catherine about the gold chains that you wear in that induction ceremony. Catherine has a magnificent set of gold chains on today, but it's fair to say the City of Melbourne gold chains are something to behold. They're solid gold. There is $1.3 million worth of gold in those chains. I actually had to have a security guard accompany me for the whole day. It's like I'm carrying $1 million in cash around in a suitcase. But those chains reflect Melbourne in many ways. They're very historical, being there from our earliest days. And of course, Melbourne is a city that was built on the back of human endeavour, and it was the beneficiary of a great gold rush, one of the greatest the world has ever known. But it was a source of great pride of Melburnians that they had those chains made as a reflection of the ambition and the pride of that early colonial town in the Antipodes, let's face it, the arse end of the world, but the pride and the vision that they had for our city. And indeed, that sense of pride and optimism is certainly something I have for Melbourne. Like 1 in 3 people in Melbourne, I was born in another country. I immigrated here from London when I was a boy. Like just such a, I was going to say, typical immigrant story. My family came here looking for a better life. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company and then for Nissan at the plant down in Dandenong. And, I'm delighted to be able to say to you, my family story was a really positive one of, life getting better as we worked hard and built a family and a life here for us in Australia. My wife is Greek and actually went to primary school in Athens as a girl, and she's got that same migrant story as well. And we're very, very grateful for the opportunities that this city and this country has given us. And we never stop telling our children on a daily basis how grateful they should be for the opportunity that Melbourne and Australia gives them. We do live in Carlton, living our inner city dream. I mean, I grew up in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, out in the outer eastern suburbs. But most of my adult life now, I have lived in the inner suburbs. We're living the inner city dream there in Carlton. And yes, I'm a long-suffering, I'm sad to say, supporter of the Carlton Football Club. You know, I've worked in business and law. I started my career as a lawyer. And to be honest with you, probably the most significant contributions I feel I've made has been in the course of public service. You touched, Robert, on the Movember story. It's an amazing story, really. I was living in a share house in Fitzroy with a couple of mates in our 20s, and we were out, you know, having a few beers, as we quite often did, and joking about how our dads all had mustaches and whatever happened to the mo. And so we kind of hit on the idea of, let's bring back the mustache. And it was a mate's birthday, and we hit on this idea of, let's grow mows in the build up to your birthday party, and let's put a party on. Who knows, a few girls might even turn up. We were pretty nerdy sort of dudes. And so over the month of November, we grew mustaches, and we were kind of making it up as we went along. Let's look, you know, we could even ask people to donate to our mows because we looked ridiculous. And so from that first year, about 30 of us, we raised, I think it was $4,000 in that first year. This incredible idea grew and grew. And so I think we're in our 22nd year now of Movember. Movember is running in 21 countries around the world. As you said, we've raised $1.5 billion globally. We're the most successful charity to ever come out of Australia in terms of fundraising. Our focus has always been on men's health. Prostate cancer, testicular cancer. My dad's a prostate cancer survivor. I've got uncles as well who are survivors. And men's mental health as well. I lost two of my best mates to suicide when I was in my early 20s. Really, really affected me. I won't unpack that story for you today. So men's mental health and prostate cancer. So the amount of money we've raised has been phenomenal. But moreover, the impact we've had through Movember has been incredible as well. So when we started Movember, prostate cancer survival rate in Australia was about 65%. Now it's 98%. Now remember, prostate cancer, it affects, it's the most prevalent form of cancer, men over 40. And so that is millions of men living happier and healthier, longer lives. On the mental health front, it's harder to measure. But if I think about some of my mates like Cam and Damo who took their lives in their early 20s, I honestly think if they were here today, they'd be able to have some of those hard conversations, those powerful conversations, which blokes aren't very good at, which would mean that I think they would be with us today. So that's the Movember story, and that's been a really, really big impact on my life. The Big Issue, I was one of the founding directors at The Big Issue. It started here in Melbourne, most successful social enterprise in Australia. You know, we like to say Movember takes homeless and vulnerable people, turns them into small business people. You know, they have their pitch on the street. It's, again, a brilliant idea, a simple idea. Movember, the magazine, it's a good read. I encourage you all to buy A Big Issue whenever you see one of our vendors. The vendor gets to keep half the cover price. The other half goes to the cost of the journalism, which is really good in The Big Issue. And, of course, the cost of the production and the distribution. Such a simple idea, but has a powerful impact. Hundreds of A Big Issue vendors around the country take pride in what they do. They develop relationships with their customers, and it's a pathway back into our society, into our community for them, taking homeless and vulnerable people, giving them a purpose, helping them back into our lives. The other really incredible impact of The Big Issue, in some ways more powerful even than the income it provides for the vendors, is I think the big issue has gone a long way to changing people's perceptions about homelessness. You know, when I was a kid growing up, homeless people were people who lived under bridges and on park benches. They were the other. They were invisible to us. And my perception of these things changed when I've had experiences of homelessness in my own family. So I know firsthand how, you know, a wrong step here or there at a certain course of your life can get people into a downward spiral, which ends with them being that person under that bridge, and who then become invisible to the rest of society. The magic of the big issue is that it puts a face to homelessness, and in fact, a friendly face to homelessness. And you realise that person is someone just like us. And so I think that has been that familiarity, that friendly face, that connection that you have with that big issue vendor does more than even the income that the big issue provides in terms of just changing public perceptions about homelessness and what we can do to fix that as an issue in our society. So those experiences have been very formative for me. And when I talk about Melbourne, and, you know, I've recently run the gauntlet of our democratic processes here in this city, and, you know, I'm honoured to have been elected. But one thing I said time and time again is I want Melbourne to be the best and fairest city in the world. In fact, I don't think we can be the best unless we're also the fairest. Now, by best, I mean most prosperous city in the world, most livable city in the world, most sustainable city in the world. All those metrics that we chase as a city. And we do so very, very well, I've got to say. But we also need to be a fair city, a city where we look out for each other, where we know that we are each other's keeper, a city where we love each other. And so for me, Melbourne best and fairest is what I'm all about. And Rotary plays a very, very big part in that story and that vision for Melbourne. Rotary brings people together to do good for our society, for our city, for our world. And so I look forward to being a strong friend, partner, and member of Rotary. Thank you so much, President Catherine, Rob, and the team for welcoming me into your ranks. Now, when we talk about cities, you know, we talk about them as places often, you know, people often talk about cities in economic terms, you know, as places that produce economic output. And that is absolutely true. You know, cities have been these phenomenal instruments for creating wealth in our world, but they are also places that are magnets for human talent, the best and the brightest. They're also places where humans flourish, you know, where you can live a meaningful life, a life of dignity, a life of purpose. And so my vision for Melbourne is, again, this goes to this notion of best and fairest. I want us to be the most successful, prosperous city in the world, but I also want us to be a city where humans can flourish and live meaningful and successful and purposeful lives. Now, I'm not going to do the politician thing and go through that catalogue of, you know, commitments and promises and achievements, but I do just want to quickly touch on three things that I prioritised during the election. And when I'm back here in a year from now, you can hold me to account. The first was just around safety and cleanliness. And I said that was my most pressing priority as Lord Mayor of Melbourne. The truth is, we are a safe and a clean city by world standards, but we need to do better. And perceptions need to be improved as well. Last night we had our first Future Melbourne Committee meeting for the year, and I'm pleased to announce we've announced that we're going to be putting security guards on the street with our local laws officers to really put a new focus on public alcohol consumption, aggressive begging around the city, and just make sure that in a carefully calibrated way, we are making sure that our city is safe and clean. On the cleaning front, we've done a huge range of initiatives. including introducing new cleaning fleet, new arrangements in place with asset owners around the city as well. I can touch on that in Q&A if there's interest. My biggest single commitment in terms of new expenditure over this coming term was around parks and gardens. So I'm old enough to remember when Victoria used to be known as the Garden State. I don't know if there's anyone who remembers Victoria, the Garden State. It was on our licence plates. Well, we may not be the Garden State anymore, at least it's not on our licence plates, but I want Melbourne to be a garden city. You know, our beautiful, beautiful parks and gardens are something that define us as our city. And I feel like they're an underrated asset, which people have almost forgotten about and don't properly appreciate this treasure that we have as a city. So the biggest commitment I made was for an expansion and an enhancement of our parks and gardens across the city, committed to building 28 new parks across the city. Many of them be pocket parks, new green strips, also committed to building, putting planter boxes on our streets around the city, create beautiful flourishes of flowers and colour, and building green spaces and providing those moments of serenity that you find, the oases around the city, and putting green walls in, green roofs on city buildings. That is the biggest single expenditure item new expenditure item that I've committed to for this term, making us a garden city, a beautiful city, which we can all be proud of. And then finally, I've made some major commitments about making sure that Melbourne has that vibrant city economy. And so I've put in place a city economy strategy, including things like chasing headquarters from emerging economies. You know, we have the biggest Indian diaspora in Australia. We have a very fast-growing and huge Chinese community. We love those communities. We're very, very proud of them. If you look at those emerging economies, those fast-growing economies, there's great opportunities here for us to attract headquarters to Melbourne. And so I want that to be a real target for us. We'll put in place a policy to light up Melbourne, light up those beautiful, glorious heritage buildings that we have around the city and make that a tourist attraction. You go to Regent Street in London, at night time, you know, people are flocking there for these night tours. We have the best collection of beautiful heritage buildings of any city in Australia by a mile. And we need to make more of those and even look at them through an economic lens as well. And I want to light up the laneways as well and make them an attraction. And then finally, put a bigger focus around major events and particularly activating the city during the winter months. You know, we do brilliantly well from September through to March, but then we struggle during those winter months. So how do we attract more people to our city during the winter months? I'm conscious of time and I want to leave time for questions and answers. So can I finish where I began by saying to you, it is truly the honour of my life to be serving as the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. I feel the weight of the role and the responsibility that comes with it. And my promise to you is that I'll work hard every single day to make Melbourne the best and fairest city in the world. Thank you so much.
Is that okay? Yep. Thanks very much, Nick, for that talk. Really appreciate it. And was really pleased to hear you talking about engaging with the buildings and the beauty of it. Because of course we've got our architectural walk to showcase Melbourne. So we're doing our bit on that. And the greening and keeping people in the parks. Of course, we've got the Rotary Peace Bells and Peace Park, of course, which are drawing people into parks and gardens as well. So we're helping to fulfil your wishes as well, which is great. So we do have time for a few questions. And since I'm here, I've just got one quick question because I know there's some people here are interested in. Just sort of a bit interested in what's happening with the Green Line in terms of, because that's a huge project, but we were just wondering how's it going with the change of Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rob. So look, I was Sally Capp's hardworking deputy and I'm a supporter of the Green Line project. It was hotly contested. I've got to tell you, through the city election, there was a number of candidates running against me who were promising to scrap the Green Line. And to be honest with you, I feel like many of them got caught up in, I don't know, some bizarre Melbourne version of the culture wars. You know, like it was as if the Green Line was a stalking horse to kind of attack Sally Capp. But what people were missing was the Green Line is actually a great project for Melbourne. Like, you know, what is the Green Line? It's a development of a promenade from the tennis centre to the Docklands, a 4-kilometre walk along the north bank of our river. Doing the same thing for the north of the river to what we did on the south bank 30 years ago that unlocks so much potential and activity along that south bank. You know, if you look on the north bank of the Yarra today, it's embarrassing, right? I wouldn't take a visitor to Melbourne there. It's a bit, you know, skanky and dangerous in some parts, I'm embarrassed to say to you. So if we can build a beautiful promenade, a link, you know, a connection of walkways, parks from the tennis centre to the Docklands, it'd be absolutely incredible, doubling the potential of our river. You know, for decades, we turned our back on the river. It's actually a great asset for our city. So to me, the Green Line project is just common sense. And so I will be continuing to invest in that project, unlocking our Yarra River, our Birrarung, and making it a magnificent waterway and a place for people to visit and enjoy in our city.
Nick, I was delighted to hear you talk about safety in Melbourne, because that is such a issue. When you walk in and you do not feel safe walking up Swanson Street sometimes. Yeah. The other thing I want to talk to you about, or ask you, is what will be done to make access to Melbourne by car easier. Because people who have cars have money to spend, and we want money spent inside the city. So if it's too hard to get in, or the parking is too onerous, people will not come. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, very happy to. So look, on city safety, again, it was a contested issue in the recent city election. I said time and time again that no one was going harder on city safety than me. And I make no apologies for that. You know, those of you who are familiar with Maslow's needs hierarchy and how human needs work, like it starts with safety and shelter. If people don't feel safe, they won't come to the city. If they don't feel safe, they won't visit the city. I do think sometimes this debate, you know, gets a little bit exaggerated. Melbourne is a safe city. We shouldn't forget that. But it does need to be made safer. And certainly the crime statistics are unacceptable to me. And there's parts of the city which are currently in an unacceptable state to me. So one of the commitments I made was to introduce city safety officers in the city. This is pretty bold policy making. You need to know that. The idea is we would introduce employed by the City of Melbourne safety officers in uniform on the streets. Now, there are other cities around the world that do this. You know, you go to London, even in Perth now, they have these city safety officers. I'm going to put them on the street. So not only are Melburnians safe, but they feel safe through that strong safety presence. Also doing some initiatives to light up the city as well that I spoke of before. There's a strong safety dimension there. And look, there's a myriad of other measures, which I'm happy to talk to you afterwards about. But I want you to know that I want that to be city safety, be something that defines me as Lord Mayor. On the car front, again, another hotly debated issue, wasn't it? The bike lanes. I don't bring ideology to this debate. I'm all about optimisation. I know that sort of sounds quite boring, but you know, I'm all about how do we get the most number of people around Melbourne the most effectively. And so that doesn't mean making Melbourne a city which is inaccessible to people by car. You know, you can't escape the data. Melbourne is a city of 5.5 million people. Like, we're a big city, and there's about 200,000 people in the municipality of the City of Melbourne. But on a busy day, we have, you know, close to 1 million people in the central city. Now, many of them will come here by public transport, and that is the most effective way, the most efficient way of moving large numbers of people around a big city. But for many people, that's not going to be possible. You know, you live in parts of the city where you're just not well serviced by public transport. So for many people, using a motor vehicle is going to be the most practical way of getting into the city. And I, for one, am not about pulling up the drawbridge on the city's central city. People live in the suburbs or anywhere in Victoria who want to come here. But having said that, I also recognise that, you know, and I'm not going to bullshit you on this front. Pardon my language. You know, the rollout of bike lanes is something that is going to continue in Melbourne. That will be done in a sensitive way. So, you know, we're not about to, you know, in the CBD core here, we've put a pause on any new bike lanes, but there are, I've said I'm going to be driven by what's called bottlenecks and black spots. So, you know, there were 11 cyclist deaths, Melbourne roads last year. That's unacceptable to me. So it's about, okay, where are those deaths occurring? How do we make those parts of the road network safer for cyclists? Equally, you know, I think there's parts of the rollout of the bike lanes that we stuffed up as a city. And so where are those bottlenecks and where can we fix them? So I've made commitments around Exhibition Street, Sandridge Bridge down by Crown, and some other bottlenecks that need to be fixed. Again, it's not driven by ideology. It's not about these silly culture wars. It's about what works and how do we make Melbourne work better for everyone.
Peter Bacon, congratulations.
Thank you, Peter.
I spoke to Scully a couple of years ago. This is my 60th year working in the city. And I think to Scully 2 years ago, I've never seen it worse. Homelessness, rubbish, everything else. Nothing is improved. For me, I'm embarrassed to be driving up through the Kingsway, the weeds, signs not painted, broken signs everywhere. I come back from the train to Flinders Street station and walk down Flinders Street. Where I used to sit in 1969 on the lawns you talk about under the palm trees having lunch. It's just a dump. So, yes, everything looks lovely from up here, but all the things you've touched on, there's a lot needs to be done. And to finish on that, parking in Flinders Street 2 weeks ago, where it said the police started this afternoon, going up to high-rise car park, here's someone robbing and breaking into cars. The police said, don't park in high-rise car parks in the city of Melbourne, because they're all getting knocked off. Then I go to one round the corner in Flinders Lane, and here's a drug-affected guy, chased the attendant into the office, and then attacked someone wanting to park, a lady. So I think you've got a huge job ahead. You've outlined it. I wish you all the best. I have on the file. I'm here next year. I have a lot of explained up.
Thank you for the question, Peter. So a couple of things there to unpack. I mean, look, I hope you get a sense from my address today, my pride in our city and my energy and my determination. The fact is, Melbourne has had some hard years. You know, we were the most lockdown city in the world. We got absolutely bushwhacked, and, you know, the city's not in the state I think I would like to see it in, and I think you share that view, Peter. I would differ in some respects from what you said. I do think the trajectory of Melbourne is positive. This is a city that does comebacks very well, better than any other city in the world, I'll put it to you. You know, you go back to the 1990s, you know, again, those of us that are old enough to have been around, we got absolutely whacked as a city through that recession of the 1990s. But the decade that followed was one of the most exciting in the history of our city. I go back to the 1890s, to the Great Depression of the 1890s. Again, the city got absolutely whacked, but a glorious period followed. And I think that Melbourne will do it again. I think the second half of this decade, the 2020s, will be great years for Melbourne. Why do I say that? Because we've got brilliant bones as a city, and we've got brilliant people who live in the city. And if we come together and we are focused and we've got the right plan in place, there's nothing that can stop us. For me, I've told you what my priority is going to be: city cleanliness, city safety, celebrating those parks and gardens, that elegance, that beauty we have in a city, which makes us a magnet for people around the world. Also focusing on that economy as well, getting us humming, making us that prosperous, flourishing city. So don't be too down, Peter. We do comebacks better than any city in the world, and we're going to do it again.
Well, thanks very much for that, Nick. Got it this time. We really appreciate you coming here and talking about it. As you know, you've heard from what we do. We're happy to be behind you. We're 100% behind you in what you want to do. We're here to help you achieve it. And we're hoping to work with you really closely over the next year or two. And thanks again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
history of our club and some very special Rotary socks produced by one of our members, Phil and Spears.
Oh, fabulous.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you, President Catherine.
Thank you, Nick.